What's going on behind the scenes and off the microphone at the Magic Word podcast? Hear what listeners and guests are saying that isn't on the podcast this week on The Magic Whisper.
Hello, this is Scott Wells, and this is The Magic Whisper. Well, I just want to let you know a couple things have been going on. Yesterday, I went to Dal Sanders' splash party in Dallas, Texas. Kent Cummins went with me. We had a great time, a great visit. The splash party was basically a pool party. Along the way, it was about a 3-hour drive, I guess, from here to there and then back again. So it was nice having Kent Cummins with me. And Kent, by the way, has his own podcast. It's called Tales from the Fantastic Magic Center, which I highly recommend that you listen to. It's a weekly podcast. But we had a great time. Along the way, we stopped at Chadwick's Illusion Warehouse. He helped me with something. Thought he might be interested in kind of seeing what it is that he had helped me build. And I had just needed, this is my case in which is my table. And I can go into this in more detail at some later time. But basically, I need a new Eureka table base. And he had manufactured this or crafted it so this way that it will fit better into the base of this. So this way, when I open it, then I've got a nice stand or a nice area for performing there. And again, I can show that if you're interested in the future, but that's my stage stand-up type of table that I use when I'm performing all the time then too. So anyhow, I had a great time. And I do want to say thank you also to one of the friends of the Magic Word, and that is Michael Breger, who had pointed out just not necessarily an error, but it was something that was just, well, actually it was an error. I made a mistake. I had credited Di Vernon for something that I thought that he said, but he didn't. And Michael had found this column in the Vernon Touch, which was in an old issue of the Genie magazine, in which he said, I feel very flattered when I receive so many letters telling me that that I have been a good influence in their magic and my advice to help them. It can be very rewarding if you constantly strive to improve. And remember what Paul Fox used to often repeat, most magicians stop thinking too soon. In other words, pretty good is not good enough. It can always be better as you continually must strive. Anyhow, I had attributed that comment about magicians thinking, stopping too soon when they think, to Di Vernon. And I think a lot of things get attributed to him for a lot of obvious reasons, being the professor he was. But again, thank you very much, Michael, for helping to correct that. Along the line also, as far as some letters and suggestions from people and listeners who have written in, I want to thank Tom Vorjahan. He had a few good ideas as to some comments over here on the Magic Whisper to talk about briefly. And one of them is like, who would I recommend as the top 5 podcasts that I've really enjoyed, or that in my opinion would be the ones to listen to. Also, he had said, what about who has surprised you and why? And also, are there guests that I would like to have spent some more time with in talking, or have I gone on afterwards, and would I like to have them back on a more regular basis? And one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is when people ask me if I'm going to get started on listening to the Magic Word podcast, what do you recommend that I could get started with that would kind of hook me, that I would want to listen and engage more to listening to other podcasts? And one that I really recommend is episode number 215 with Brad Henderson, in which actually was a 2-parter. That was one of those that did go on a little bit longer. We made it into 2 episodes in which he talks about magic being art. It's phenomenal. It was really good conversation. And we've had some other conversations, some other people over the years that I would recommend. But anyhow, that's one I think if you get into it, go back into the archives, look that up. I think you will enjoy that one. If you're looking to find a podcast that's like, how do I get started and get hooked into listening to more episodes of the podcast? Also, we are going to be having a little bit of a problem with my numbering system with the conventions and things I've got coming up. I've got some back-to-back daily reports, and we're going to be blowing past 850, number 850. Well, I usually use 800, or rather I use the 50s as a milestone marker. I think they're important, and I've got one that I'm going to have out of sync later that will be with David Williamson. I'll tell you here in advance that I'd recorded his last January, and it's golden stuff, and I'd held it for a while, wanting it to be on the 50s. While we're on the subject of David Williamson, I'm not going to have an opportunity to post this clip in next week's Whisper, but I will give it to you then right now. So this way you can hear just a short soundbite from the podcast that will be coming up. There will be episode 850 coming up later in August.
My recommendation to young magicians is when they go, there's something I came up with. It's like, okay, but understand that you're probably not the first to come up with that. So be careful about attaching your name to it and getting your pride. I had a pride when I was young, like the striking vanish and all this stuff, but it was based on Ken Krenzel's kangaroo coin it was based on somebody else's action, so there's nothing really original. We're all playing in the same sandbox. You're going to get the same sand in your shoes,
I know that will be a podcast episode that you will be wanting to hear. Also, during the end of the podcast, David will offer a special discount, special deal for podcast listeners in order to join his flight school. So anyhow, I'm going to be going to a couple conventions, and so we will be going from 8:49 to 8:51. So if you're wondering, that's why. We're keeping 8:50 until afterwards, whenever I return from the other convention. Speaking of which, I'll be going this week, leaving tomorrow, or actually, as this is being posted here today, I am on my way to Chicago and then on to Colon, Michigan for Abbott's get-together. And then from there, go back to Chicago and fly to Las Vegas, where we'll go for Magic Live. So it'll be back-to-back daily reports from one convention into another one. So be sure to tune in. If you see me, if you can't make those conventions, you can listen to the podcast episodes and get caught up on the reports. If you do see me at one of these conventions, please be sure to come say hello. I'd love to take a picture, chat with you for a little bit, and maybe get a shout out on the podcast. That'd be great. So I'd appreciate it. And if you have an opportunity to slip me some money, that's great, which will be helpful for help keeping the Magic Word podcast going all the time then too. I also want to thank other people for sending in their pictures of them holding their fingers to their lips. This is one over here of my friend Colin Cloud. And perhaps you're familiar with Colin working in Las Vegas, then also you're familiar with that type of pose that many magicians and mentalists in particular use all the time then too. But I'd like to see one from you. If you'll just send that to me, Scott at the Magic Word Podcast, I'd be glad to post yours over here then sometime then in the near episode with the next Magic Whisper. So a lot of stuff we had going on. Please tune in this week. And as we start to give these daily reports from Colon, Michigan at Abbott's Get Together, and then after that, as a matter of fact, the next one of these whispers I'm going to report from, and they'll be recorded someplace when I'm on the road. So until then,
share the whisper with other magicians and join us next time on The Magic Whisper. The Magic Whisper is a division of the MagicWordPodcast.com.